Hello, everyone. I will be discussing the suicide prevention videos that we have been listening to. Um, After listening to the interview with Jonathan Singer, I agreed with a lot of his viewpoints, especially when it came to the MSW programs, teaching more on the warning signs and the training that we can utilize when it comes to suicide prevention. I know for me, my personal experience, I didn't know anything, not really a lot about suicide or suicide prevention until I took the mental health first aid class and experienced it firsthand with a student that passed away via suicide at my internship last year. And it was kind of overwhelming for me because I didn't really know where as an intern we would fit. And as my internship supervisors were talking to the students, we were kind of like helping with the grief counseling part of it. And I kind of wish that we were taught more about how to handle the situation once somebody does decide to commit suicide, even before. Honestly, I didn't even know the warning signs. Not a lot of them anyway. And I believe that's a big gap that we should be working on. For me, the hardest part is how we can teach post-intervention skills. I think according to the Yale Medical Center, there is a 60% increase in suicides over the last decade for youth ages 10 to 24, and that's pretty much alarming. And I know with the Duke Health video, they were saying that the rise is due to isolation and I guess a lot of things going with COVID-19, which is true. The COVID was a shock for everyone, I think, because we were so used to being out and about and doing things. Now that we were isolated for so long, we didn't really know how to cope with it. And I think that's something that even after 5 or 6 years later, we're still trying to adjust. But also I think a lot of the suicides within our youth has a lot to do with social media and has a lot to do with the generational differences. I think a lot of our millennials and Gen X's and boomers, we have a different mentality when it comes to life in general. I think our tenacity and our resilience is a little different. And I think even though our generation may not have talked about it a lot more compared to this generation, we learn to not to take things so personally, I assume. But I think that's something that as social workers, we should work together to bridge the gap for. And I think having the digital literacy, especially when it comes to social media, because that plays a big part on how kids today interact with each other. And compared to how we were growing up, we didn't really have internet like that. So now the internet is like a big factor in how kids communicate, how they view life in general. And I think we have to figure out how to utilize that in a healthy way. Especially as social workers, we have to learn how to not really appease everyone, but meet everyone where they are in regards to helping them to reframe their thought processes. And I also believe that at a macro level, that narrative therapy plays a big part of that too. I think that everyone has a story, and whether the suicide attempt was successful or whether or not they're a survivor of it or they had their families still left behind, their stories still matter. And when it comes to narrative therapy, I think as a social worker or in the policy level, they won't see numbers. They will need to see people, and they see us as people, not just numbers. And I believe that going to Capitol Hill or even like writing a blog about what's going on is important, because even though it may not affect them directly, putting a face to a name is really important, especially when it comes to policy, because then they're not just talking about, well, this is what we think we should be doing, but we're thinking about, well, this is what certain people have been through, and these are their names. Like I said before, when it comes to the stigma of suicide prevention, it's more of a generational thing. I think for us, we have to learn how to balance that. Like a student in crisis should be advocated for and learn how to advocate for themselves. But it's also going to take the training outside of schools to make sure we get that done. And I believe that cultural context is very important, because just like with generational, everybody's culture is very different. So how we view things may not be the same as how, I guess, a Hispanic person would, or a white person would, or an Indian person would, because certain things are taboo in certain cultures. And I think that also causes a barrier when it comes to learning the warning signs and knowing what the warning signs are, because each person's different. Certain things that we may deem as normal may not be normal to other people, but we have to make sure that we are being open and just paying attention to small details. I think people are so caught up in the world and caught up about their own lives that a lot of people dismiss or don't recognize the signs, not because they don't care, but it's because that you might see them as normal or something similar. I was not aware that we even had a suicide and crisis lifeline, or that it changed the number. So that's really good to know. I think that as social workers, we should be more open about where to find this information, find resources. Because I think a lot of people don't really think about finding the resources until they need it. And as social workers, based on the video, we're more like a helping hand, more like a listening ear, instead of trying to fix the problem. We're just trying to help the person going through their crisis to see things at a different perspective, which is great.